All right, welcome back. We were talking about stress, causes, and consequences of stress. So we talked about causes of stress at work. We talked about what it is you do. You're worried about your job. You don't have time to do things. We talked about physical demands. We talked a little bit about ambiguity, right? When you don't know what's required of you, that causes stress. And my strong advice is find out. It is okay to ask questions. And if your boss isn't around because he's at a meeting or out of town or whatever, right, talk to other people in your department. Talk to the senior people. Talk to the mentors. Talk to the people who look like they know what's going on, right? The boss told me to write this report. I don't know what that looks like. Do you have an example I could see? Right? Oh yeah, sure. I've got one right here. Or maybe the administrative assistant has one, or something like that, right? Sometimes there's conflicts at work, right? Sometimes good-meaning people decide to do things a different way, and they're going to have a conflict about how to do it. Sometimes it's inadvertent. Sometimes it's been set up by the organization. So for instance, there's conflicting goals. So one group has been told to cut down on the amount of inventory we have because inventory costs money. Another group has been told to make sure we have more than enough service parts for customer service because I want our customers to be happy so they get the replacement parts quickly, right? Well, clearly those two groups are going to be in conflict because they have competing goals for their organizations, right? And that's going to cause conflict. So basically the organization has set them up to fight, right? That causes stress. Again, my suggestion is you point that out to the managers and say, hey, we need some ground rules rather than we two groups turn on each other and have a slugfest. That's not good for anybody, including the organization. Right? Interpersonal demands, right? Might be group pressures, leadership styles. People have different styles that they like. People like have different styles that they like out of their leaders, and certainly might be personality conflicts too, right? So all these organizational stressors can lead to individual consequences over here, right? So some people react negatively with alcohol and drug abuse or even violence. Some people react, they have sleep disturbances. They sleep too much or not enough, or they don't sleep at night, but then they cause them to sleep during the day, right? And certainly excessive sleeping is a sign of depression and or stress. It's not that uncommon to see that in college students. And I've certainly, sometimes when I teach this in class, students will go, oh yeah, oh, wait, I know people just like that. All right, so let me just say, if you do know people like that and you're on a college campus, right, there are probably people around that can help. If you're at work, often there's people around that can help too, including your HR department, and some organizations have free counseling for employees because better you pay for maybe hundreds or a couple $1,000s worth of counseling than have an employee say do something to over months of period of time their performance goes down and down almost to zero, or maybe they do something really bad and then they end up getting fired, and now you've got to spend many thousands of dollars recruiting and hiring new people. So many employers have a counseling program for free. Also, it's most of them are secret's not the right word, they're confidential. They're confidential, so if you go, they don't tell your employer who went, right? So no one's going to rat you out to the boss, right? I've seen people go to those, and quite frankly, I've seen them work, right? Particularly when it's a psychological issue. They're upset over a change in their family. They're getting divorced. They had a trauma. Somebody happened, a parent died, a child's really sick or hurt or something like that. I've seen a lot of people, their performance at work go down, then they go to counseling, and then much of their performance comes back. May not be back 100%, but 80% is far better than say 20%. So I'm a big believer in that, quite frankly, right? And then organizational stressors might lead to medical conditions, right? Heart disease, headaches, migraines, upset stomachs, ulcers, the list goes on and on and on. So if you're having medical problems because of your organizational stresses, you really need to think about what can you do to reduce them, right? Get a different job in the same organization. Leave that organization, go to a different organization, something like that, right? Because it's I can't believe it's worth it, right? So those are individual consequences. We also have organizational consequences. I mentioned decline in performance. Sometimes we will go down in performance a lot. Absenteeism and turnover, right? People under stress tend to miss work a lot. They actually tend to get sick more. Why? Because the stress affects their immune system. So people under more stress than they can handle will often start getting sick. And it's not that they're faking it. They truly are sick, right? They truly are sick because of their immune system. Right? And of course, a decrease in motivation or satisfaction. They just don't find the joy in it anymore. They just don't have fun at work anymore and so forth, right? And all this stuff can lead to burnout, where it's not that you're just tired and need a break. You're just done with it, right? And sometimes you go on. Now, old as I am, I know people that retired and they kind of burn out from their job. Maybe they're burnt out at their job for a long time, but they retire and they go get a different job, right? And it's not in the same industry, and they're doing something different. And it's like they started all over again. The burnout is gone. They get a kick out of going to work. And I often they'll tell me, well, I don't make much money, but it keeps me busy and I have a lot of fun. I have all these friends at work and we joke and we have a good time. And quite frankly, I look forward going to work for the first time in decades. Right, and I think that's fantastic. I think that's the perfect thing for them. All right, I really like to see that when that happens to somebody. We talked about organizational stressors again, like task demands. We mentioned, physical demands. Sometimes it's just hard to do. As you get older, if you're, say, a plumber and you got to crawl under somebody's crawl space under their house, right? Maybe when you're 20, that's a piece of cake. When you're 60, not so much, right? So there can be things like physical requirements, or you got to stay up long hours and so forth. Role demands, there is expected behaviors and you just can't do it anymore. It's group pressures and pressures as the leader and personality conflicts and all that thing starts to happen. But an interesting factor of stress is this, right? So I know students would love to be in a low stress situation, but quite frankly, think about it when you had a class that was really, really easy, if you've had such a class, right? Often you're over here, right? Workload induced stress is way to the left here. You're bored, you're apathetic, you don't care. Why don't you care? Because this class is so easy, it's so boring, right? So your stress level's down, so your performance is down. You just don't put any effort into it. You don't see any reason to, right? Way to the right over here, we have tension and anxiety, right? Because your work-induced stress is high. So you spend your time sitting in your cubicle freaking out rather than getting work done. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So this is some students, you may have seen this, I don't know, at finals week, right? We're coming up on finals week. I got a big report to do. Matter of fact, I got 3 big reports to do, and I got 5 final exams to get ready for. And they spend their time getting all spun up as opposed to, emotionally stressed out as opposed to getting work done, right? And in the middle, this is really what we want, is the sweet spot here, is we want some stress leading to high energy and high motivation. Okay, all right, here it comes finals week. I got to buckle down. The big push is on, right? The people get determined, right? They get ready for the big push, right? And that can lead to lots of outputs. So as managers set goals, right? Obviously, too easy, that people are just, they don't try, right? If the goal is so aggressive, it's out of reach, people spend their time either not trying because they know they want me to do it, or they're so stressed out by it, they can't do it. Right? So what you really want is put some stress on people so they can't just coast. They have to work, and they have to work hard, right? But that leads to the highest performance levels. Right? So managing stress, right? So as workers, as students, right? If you're college students, right? How do you manage stress, right? Lots of good strategies here, right? So on what's a bad reaction? On the other chart we saw that, right? Alcohol, drugs, violence, bad reactions, right? So what's good reactions, right? Certainly exercise, right? Get out and do something. Burn it off, right? And if you have a really stressful time, go lift weights. Go punch a boxing bag, that kind of stuff, right? Work it off. Do something to relax. And not just, it doesn't have to be passive. It doesn't mean throwing in Netflix and binge watching your favorite TV show 5 episodes in a row. Although that's not a bad time sometimes. Sometimes your brain needs some downtime. You need to brain candy, and coast a little bit. But those are often useful things to do. Role manage it. Remember I said how ambiguity causes stress, right? So role management is you go find out about that ambiguity, right? And you end it, right? Or get some limits on it, right? Support groups, I mentioned some organizations have, certainly colleges have counselors. They're needed too, by the way. And then we have organizations sometimes will let you go to other organizations, other counseling places and help you out, right? And then just plain old good-fashioned time management, right? You see people, if you got a ton of stuff to do, make a list. And then pick something that's not too long-term and then chalk it off, do it and chalk it off the list. And as you can see, you're physically reducing the list, right? That helps some people. I know it's one of the things I do, right? When I feel like I'm overwhelmed by events, right? Pick something to do it. Get it started, right? It's the old saying in business, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So just get started on that list, right? And try to get there. Right. So often we talk about things like work-life linkages. So sometimes there's these fundamental linkages between work life and personal life. It's better if they support each other, right? Work is not who you are. It's who you are is out of work. But if work can add to that, right, that's great. Right? It's really good stuff. And then we got to think about work-life balance. And certainly this generation of Generation Xers and millennials and all that are known to be much more concerned with work-life balance. I don't want to spend my life at work. I don't want to my life shouldn't be tailored totally around work. I should have a life outside of work. And generally that leads to higher mental health, leads to higher social health, and we find that if you talk to it generally leads to better workers, quite frankly, right? Because everything's not hinged on what happens at work.